about? Because you said hello from Singapore because Kelana Jaya is in Singapore.
Welcome, Malar. to Singapore.
Yes. Because today we have what do we have? We have Pasir Ris and Kembangan in PLQ or Paya Lebar quarters, and we brought Kelana Jaya back into Singapore as well. So which is why you probably saw her comments about hello from Singapore. We thought we'd like to do something a little bit different for our last show in 2020.
Yes, it is 2020.
Yeah, my brain has gone to 2023.
And Sham doesn't sound like Sham so mellow. I think it's because you're sitting beside her.
You reckon? Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just afraid I
So-
might just get backhand slaps.
Slap. Never mind, it's a dark leg.
We are like
So am I mellow or too loud?
no mellow.
Very mellow. Okay, very good. It's the
I can't
the
take
latte.
it, Sham. I need my Sham back.
It's okay. Carry
Okay.
on. We'll do something and something will happen and your charm will come back. Okay, so what are we doing today?
We are doing a wrap of 2022.
Okay.
Right? You guys started this show, it's been almost 6 over months with 36 over leaders who have come in and shared ideas.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
So what we are looking at is wrapping up 2022 by looking at what are the insights that we have received,
Mm.
right? And what are some of the actionable ideas that you can suggest based on what you have received?
Mm.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to be doing for this show today.
Why do you ask so difficult questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay. So you're asking me to look at the camera, is it? That's not what you're asking me to do, Malar. Okay,
We
so
can't do this. I think we're better off virtually. Anyway, maybe we want to just welcome our friends who've been supporting us all the time.
Yep.
Who
Yep,
is-
go
yeah,
ahead,
so
go
I
ahead.
don't know who's there.
Okay,
Okay.
Sandeep,
Uh-huh.
thank you very much. You've always been with us. This is going to be our last show for this year, this month, right? And then we'll be back in 2023. And we've got good evening to you too. And you've always been with us. So thank you very much for being big supporters and fans.
Yes.
Gerald is always been with us. Sandeep has always been with
Yes.
us, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you very much for joining us. And funny, I feel nervous.
Really?
I think it's Singapore.
No.
Maybe.
It's Ashokh.
Yeah, maybe it's the live thing.
No, I think it is Ashokh.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Hi, Patience. Jen, nice to see you on the show. Fire away with your comments and your questions.
Yeah.
Patience, you were a guest with Malar.
Oh yes, she spoke about boundaries in another show.
Yep. And that
The
was
other
what,
show.
a couple of weeks ago, was it?
That's right.
Okay, very good. So, let's start.
Okay,
Okay.
so we should ask Ashokh questions. Okay, now Ashokh is supposed to.
Okay. Shoot, please.
So,
please.
since you were the last born in this show,
Okay.
what were the things excited you about? What told you that yes, Ashokh, I should join Malar and
And
Sham and in this leadership
Can I
show?
reframe the question?
Sure.
Sure.
Ashokh, how were you inspired to join these two amazing women?
Sorry, Malar, did you say you wanted to reframe the question or dramatize the question?
No,
That's two different
reframe.
things.
It's reframe. Okay.
Okay. Again, I have had relationships with both of you.
You
right?
sounds
I've
bad.
enjoyed it. So when Sham called me and said, can you just hop into the show because she's got to take a break? I said, no, I never thought twice about it.
Mm.
But I must say, having jumped into the show,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I got the wow.
Mm.
It was totally amazing. So for number one, I want to thank both of you for really asking me to be part of the show.
Oh.
Really appreciate it.
Oh.
Now, when I got into the show, what I realized was this: the leaders were coming in and the leaders were sharing their insights.
Mm.
They were very unconditional in the way they were sharing. They were very selfless in the way they were sharing. And every week it was almost like reading a leadership book.
Mm.
Mm.
They were coming in and sharing their insights, and it was mind-blowing to me in many ways.
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
And what I liked about them was they were sharing with us tried and tested ideas that they had tried.
Mm.
It was not
Mm.
philosophical, it was not theoretical ideas.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It was driven by their conviction.
Mm.
They had a very firm belief in what they were talking about,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And they were focused on driving performance and results in
Mm.
that sense,
Mm.
right? So it was so authentic in the way they were sharing. Now, what I also realized for me when I was listening to all the speakers, I realized there was a common theme,
Mm.
right, that came up from all of them for me,
Mm.
right? And I realized all these leaders were focusing on results by focusing on the relationships.
Okay.
Okay. And one thing that they all spoke about, but not in those words, was interactions,
Mm.
right? They all spoke about having interactions,
Mm.
right? And some of them even said they had deliberate interactions,
Mm.
right? And some of them even designed deliberate interactions.
Mm.
Now, as a agile facilitator and coach, I can totally appreciate that.
Mm.
You know, I really enjoyed that. What I mean by that is, if you look at the Agile Manifesto, right, there are 12 principles and 4 values. The first value itself, it says people and interaction over processes and tools.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all these leaders, right, were demonstrating that. For example, when Marshall, when she came on the show, right? Masi, all right. Masi, right? She shared about collaborative relationships. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about knowing people at a deeper level. That's about interactions.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Dr. Khan. I wasn't part of that show, but I heard the show. Right? So he was talking about there are a lot of conversational opportunities.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
On a daily basis and on a situational basis. You know? So how do you now use that, right, to drive performance, relationships in that sense? You know? Now, Yatsing, we were in that show together. It was about values. He shared about using values, right, as a way to hold those conversations.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So it was about interaction. Right? Then Vijay right? He spoke about hot conversations.
Yep.
Right? You need to have.
Yep.
Right? And he said leaders are paid to hold conversations. So it's all about interaction. And of course, Harit, right? Our last week in November. Again, he spoke about interaction, but he used the RASI tool, right, as a way to align everyone and interact. So this is what I saw commonality among all the leaders, right? That they were sharing. They were all focused on the results, but building relationships, you know, and they were very deliberate in the way they held their interactions. So this is what came up to me, right? From September when I came in, right? But you guys have been there much longer than me.
February.
Way much longer. Right?
But Ashok, so I mean, what Ashok said is interesting because interesting as to I think we have met our objective in that way, because the idea of the show when we started Leadership in Flow is that I think if you talk about leadership is about people, right?
Yes.
But when we discussed it over and over again, we felt that with the leaders that we met, and with the kind of struggles that we look at, we tend to think. I think the challenge is it people or is it results?
Okay.
Right? People are profit. So it is not all, but it is results through the people. And that's why we had leadership positions, right? We started off well. Along the way, we've sort of lost the way. But we were very, very blessed because the 36 speakers, when we actually looked at it, when we try and summarize it, right? The 36 speakers, if there's one thing common about them, is they were all people leaders. They wanted to lead people. They're passionate about people. Now, and it does not mean that results mean anything less, right? And that's what we saw coming through. I think all the 36, different guests that we brought in.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure Ashok would agree with me. Every time we got off a show, we felt inspired in different ways, right?
Yeah.
And I think so. The reason we are having the show is actually because of our show, because yes, we were supposed to end last week.
Yes,
yes.
But he said, we need to have one more show.
He's a bit vain, and he wanted to be on screen again. That's the back end truth. But really, Ashok set us down and asked us why this was important for us, and being so-called emotionally intelligent, I feel emotional now because what we realized is that we felt really, really blessed to have had the leaders whom we connected with to say yes,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
And to be as real as they can be on the show.
Yeah.
Every one of them. And I think some of them are here. Avinash is here, right?
Yes, Avinash
Yeah.
is here.
So Avinash, you're one of them, who was on the show. So every leader that we chose or we connected with, I think we had a criteria,
Mm.
right? And Sham, do you remember what were the criteria?
Very nice. Um, I one criteria was one of us kind of knew them
Yeah.
at a certain level, right?
Mm.
So we had experience with the leaders in one form or the other,
Mm.
either through working with them, primarily through working with them, right? Or we've connected on LinkedIn with them and we've built a relationship with them, but we knew them. So that was, I think, one criteria. The second criteria to me was that in our interactions with them, uh, we some few things stood out. One of the things that stood out was that they think a lot about the people
Mm.
that they work with, right? They're constantly mulling and thinking about what they could do differently. It may not be what they could do better, maybe better, yeah, or that may not be something that was wrong, but they were always thinking about what they could do differently with their team, right? That's one. That's two. Number three were the quiet ones. They're the ones
I
that
think that stood out, right?
Yep. They're the quiet ones. They're not the ones that you hear or read about in case studies, even in the organization, they may be the quiet ones, quietly going along, doing what they need to do to get the results that they want, while working and keeping the people that they have that they're working with, close and tightly knit. Yeah. So I think those would be the three
Yeah,
criteria.
I think one thing that we were looking for, that we were inspired, was that the leaders whom we have worked with, and we saw them struggling with leadership.
Okay.
And when we say struggle, that if we met them either for consulting projects or
Mhm,
training, they were struggling with the kind of issues that how to be better every other day, right? They brought these issues and they were thinking about it and talking about it and sharing with us, is what I think I saw, which made me have a lot of respect for them, right? Because I think usually in leadership we meet two type of leaders, right? One type is the cool kind who shows that I have everything under control,
Okay.
right? And stop
Okay.
looking at Ashok, okay? Now, yeah, I mean, really cool. And sometimes
So
we
who's
make
the cool leader that comes to mind?
no, I cannot say name all because
No, cannot, no?
cannot.
Cannot. Bias, is it?
Bias.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
I mean, I think very often when we look at leadership, right, we look at the cool leaders who seem to have it all, right?
So when you
when
say
they show-
cool, they're unfazed. Is that
Yeah.
what okay.
Like, it seems like they know how to manage everything, right? And even sometimes when they come into class, they behave that way. And I think if we are going into leadership position, it is easy to look at these people, and then when you are struggling, you tend to think, hey, what's wrong with me? Because the great leaders that I watch have it, all around them, and they seem to know how to be doing it. But what I loved about the what I will call quiet leaders, number one, they were practitioners.
Yes.
We saw them practicing.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So they were practicing, and number two, they kept reflecting and they kept asking the next question and the next question. They were never satisfied. Even though we thought they were great, but they were never satisfied. They were on the path of personal development all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
They were thinking about, how do I grow as a person? How do I grow as a leader? And I need to continue doing this. So while I think I've met my objective for this round, but then I'm thinking, okay, what's my next growth then? So they're practitioners, and they are reflective. They are always looking at, how do I grow to become better first as a person? So I think the kind of leaders we brought in, or we had, were very much focused on the personal growth. I think we see this even when we do the prep work, right? The commitment to the prep work that our speakers gave, right? Like, I mean, we have to do that because it's our job, right? But
Yeah.
poor
I mean,
speakers
so-
don't owe us anything.
Exactly, right? And like you said in your post on LinkedIn this afternoon, right? They were generous with their time
Yeah.
and with their experience,
Mhm.
right? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we are a new show, right?
Yeah.
And in the grand
And
scheme
small.
of and small,
And small.
right? All right. So our fans, thank you very much. We are always very very grateful that you're here in the shows and our episodes. And yet they said yes hesitantly, all right? Scheduling conflicts and all of that aside, right? They were genuine in their yes, and they shared that with us, not just in being in the show, but also in the preparation with us, right? And it was not just that preparation call. They did put effort in thinking about the questions that we
Mm.
gave them and coming to the show prepared with stories to share, and whether it was a story of a struggle or a story of where they championed something or they succeeded.
Quick question for both of you, right?
Why?
Uh,
What
I want
about
to
you?
add on to what she
Okay,
said.
all right.
Okay.
Add on first before I throw in the
While we
question.
think of the question.
I already got the question.
Thought already.
No. No, because when you are saying that, right, and you're absolutely right, because they were so committed to the purpose of the show,
Mm,
right?
mm,
They were committed to, so they did not agree to the show because they had a voice, because these are leaders that we had to convince to come out in public,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Low profile leaders,
Yes,
right?
correct.
But they were practitioners,
Yep.
right? On one hand. On the other hand, when we told them our objectives, nothing else mattered.
Yep.
So and we say, our audiences, our live audience, it's a small group, and if not all, I think all of them said, well, let's keep focus on the purpose, and we'll see whoever it can reach out to, it can reach out to. So they're very purpose driven, actually. That's something that's coming to my mind.
Or they bought into our purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we had shared purpose.
Yes. Yeah.
We had a shared vision, because I think the objective of when we first started the show, the idea was, we felt that good leaders work very hard. And the expectation on good leaders can be unrealistic. And good leaders were pushing themselves a lot.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And we wanted to reach out to bring out these leaders, to see what good leaders do, how they struggle, and how they manage. Which is why, Ashok, I think when you inspired us to do today's show, right? We looked at the theme and we say inspiration to action, because every leader who came on the show was inspired in their own way, with their own values and purpose.
Correct.
And they shared with us the action plans that they took, right, in the issues that they were struggling with.
Sure.
And and how it worked for us. Okay, now you can ask the question.
Wait, hold on. One
Okay.
small thing I want to say. Because of what you have said, I want to thank the leaders
never
who said yes to
I'll
us.
just walk up.
Yeah. No, wait. No, wait, hang on. Very quick one, not long winded like that. I want to thank the leaders who joined us and said yes to us once again. Right from the first leader to the last show that we had a few.
From Celine to Harith.
Yes, from Celine to Harith.
Avinash, you're somewhere in the middle.
And yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for your generosity, and thank you for trusting us with your stories.
Yeah. Thank you, Gerald, because you said one of the best thought leadership show, right? I really appreciate that comment, Gerald. I don't know whether we are the best, but I think we are striving to add value as much as possible, right? To me,
No.
right?
Gerald
Because-
said one of the best.
One of the best.
Say thank you.
Okay, thank you. No, I did say
Yes. Okay.
thank you.
Okay,
Right?
now
So we're
ask
still
the-
striving, all right? So, Gerald, taking from there and the questions I'm going to be asking the two ladies here, right? When I came into the show in September, right? Well, in the Singapore context, I suspect it might be the same in Malaysia at that point of time. We were coming out, right? Or we were getting used to a post-COVID era. I'm calling it post-COVID, right? Because for 2 years, we were all doing your hybrid work and all of that, working from home,
Okay.
right? And then in 2022, right, is when I noticed people were coming back to work and leaders right, were trying to grapple
Mm.
with how to do this,
Mm.
right? So as much as you talked about the leaders earlier, about how they showed up, right? What I also noticed was this: they were taking very decisive stance,
Mm.
right,
Mhm.
in leading the people during this uncertain time,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And that's what I really appreciated. That means within these uncertain times where there is no rule book,
Mm.
right? There's
Mm.
you do not know how to move forward.
Mm.
They took a stand and they said, okay, this is the way we are going,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
So that inspired me,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
What about you guys? What inspired you about the way they were driving the people forward in this uncertain times?
Mm.
What stood out for you?
Can I take that first?
Sure, please.
Thank you. I have to Google for the answer now.
You mean you didn't do your homework, is it?
He didn't give me the question.
Okay. All right.
No
I
one
mean, we were
else.
talk- we
no
were-
one else will volunteer to run the show with us after this.
yeah. You're just, making it very difficult for us to find a replacement for ourselves at some point in time and somewhere. Okay. Yesterday when we were discussing and we were exploring, we were still thinking and we were still figuring out what angle we're going to take, right? In our discussion yesterday, I said one of the things that stands out for me in all the episodes is that they've made the leaders that we spoke to made articles and books about leadership,
Yep. Okay.
right?
Okay.
And but that was textbooks. I'm not talking about textbooks, right? But the books that we read about leadership and the best practices about leadership. How do you lead a team? Whether it's from HBR or wherever, they made it come alive. They gave
Okay.
it was almost like a case study, but it's a very detailed, in-depth case study of the thing that they do that makes them good at what they do,
Yeah.
right? And just thinking about all the leaders that we spoke to, I think one of the things that they do is that they are very self-aware. They're self-aware of what it is that they do well,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they're also self-aware about the gaps that they have,
Okay.
that may trip them or they may fall into in order that will hamper them getting the results that they need. Right, that's one. Number two, I think they reflect a lot.
Mm.
All right, they reflect a lot. They're always thinking about what do I need to do in order for either to close the gap or strengthen something,
Okay.
right? Or has something changed because of, let's say, a global pandemic, for example, or even maybe something not so big or huge like that, but whatever changes that is happening, and we know change is quite frequent these days, right? So for me, I think those two things are very the key that came up for me strongly, and they made changes where they felt they needed to make changes,
Okay.
because at the center of it was the people, right? And they
Mhm.
knew that the only way they could get the results that they were required to get as in their position were through the people that they're working with, right? And they were mindful that they needed to get it from their people without burning out their people or attempting not to burn out their people. So for me, it was leadership come to life.
Oh, that's nice.
Right? The books that you read, they're great books. What I sometimes feel is like I wish I knew how they actually did it. All right. Yeah. So that was the awesome.
So what you liked about them was that they were reflective, right?
They're self-aware.
Self-aware and
Right?
reflective. That's what I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
Right.
Self-aware.
Yeah.
I get
So
that.
they're
Mhm.
self-aware, and because they're self-aware, therefore they reflect on what needs to be done,
Mm.
what needs to be continued, what needs to be done differently, perhaps, and they make those changes. They experiment, they try, right? But at the end, at the middle of all their decisions, I think it's the people. Yeah. So it was nice. It felt warm,
Right.
right?
Right.
There's
Right.
nice feel good feeling when you talk to them.
But as you say, the book comes alive, right? I think one of those things that I feel very proud
Mhm.
is that we brought leaders among us.
Mm. Mm.
Because I think in this part of the world, we're so used to reading about people whom we might never meet
Yeah.
in person,
Yeah.
right? And these are people now we know we can connect with them, we can even meet them depending on which region we are. So I think it's very nice to see and listen to leaders who are doing it in our culture. Because sometimes when you read a book and you look at a leadership example or a challenge, you say, "Yeah, that's good, but I'm not too sure whether this fits into our it fit into our culture, right?"
Yep.
So number one is, I think, for us to have people leaders who are practicing in our culture. Number one, they're accessible. I think number three is really, for us to know that there are great leaders among us.
Yeah.
I think for me, that one gives me great pride to say, that just look here, spotlight these wonderful leaders whom, we've grown to respect. And, when people get to know them and, those who have been following us, who watch, will agree with us. They had, great ideas that they shared with us. And these are real ideas that they practice and brought about the results.
Malar, you always talk about even being a leader is a journey, right? You always said that there is a development that they go through, right? Did you see that coming out also? Because today, where they're making those decisions and all that, right? Did you see that coming through? I mean, there's something that we miss out all the time, right?
Yeah, but this is really again inspired by you, because when we were looking at inspired by him,
because he asked all those questions.
Yeah. So why I say inspired by Ashokh, and this guy comes halfway, 3/4 of the show.
At the end of it.
Towards the end of it, and he's asking us very difficult question. And why I feel inspired, because I think Sham and I just went, jumped in, and we started doing, and we followed our hearts and minds to be in clarity, right? And thank God, one synergy came by to help us to synergize, right? So I think while that worked out well, I think what Ashokh keeps doing for us is that helping us to go back to our whys, number one, and number two, I think Ashokh is always also pushing us to say, okay, what do people really need? Are you giving what in Bahasa we'll say shock sendiri, like you do it because you love it, and that's usually meant for me. Like Malar is always shock sendiri. Malar wants to do things that she wants to do, fine, but are we serving the audience that we actually started the show for? And I think that question was very important. And going back to your question, so when Ashokh asked me to reflect, and this is where when I reflect, I also become a bit emotional, right? I realized every leader whom we spoke to was already on a personal development path. So what I realized is like we become leaders because we were already on a personal development path, right? I'm developing faster than my peers at some level, which is why I'm given a chance to lead. So first, personal development path.
Okay.
And then when they actually get positions where they need to manage or lead, I'm using it interchangeably, right? They then realize me being the person I am is not enough, because I need to extend myself. I need to grow now. And they're always on the lookout of how to develop themselves as a leader.
Okay.
So there's personal growth, there's leadership growth, growing as a leader. And thirdly, why do they want to do this? Anything and everything that they are at work is to contribute to the business growth.
That's right.
Right? Now, why? And this is what I mean by purposefully. They may not articulate their purpose, but they are clear that their role as a leader is that they want to make a difference. So they develop as a person, as a leader, and they use their experiences in their development part to transform and inspire people to get the results, right? That they were committed to, right? And I think that was consistent with every leader that we spoke. Soft-spoken, assertive, biased, unbiased, whatever package that they came in, right? Their purpose was clear, and they knew that they were making a difference in their own quiet, gentle way. They won't say it, but their purpose, they walked their purpose more than they talked their purpose. Of course, when they came to our show,
They
we got them
talked
to
talk about it. Yeah. Okay. Now I've got a question.
you.
So yeah. For both of you,
You.
yeah, I flipped it a little bit. Okay, because cannot do it. We have to do it and flip it. You thought you were going to do
No,
this the
no,
way
I'm
we
just-
talked about, right? So the question is, I mean, if I'm a viewer, I'm watching this, I'm listening to this the show, right?
Okay.
And we're listening to all these things that the leaders are doing, right? And you leader or I'm an individual contributor hoping to one day, move up the ranks and become a leader, a people manager, maybe, and then I know manager of managers and so forth, right? And I'm going, wait a minute, it's easy for them to say what they're saying and do what they're doing because they're already there. So whereas, someone like me, without the trappings or the advantage of a position may not be able to do this. Okay, it's easy to do it when you are in position to do all the things that we are talking, and we are so encouraged and grateful to hear and share with you. So yeah, I mean, it's easy for them to do it now that they're leaders, but
Okay.
it's how do I think about this? It's a little bit like a chicken and egg question.
No,
right?
I mean, I think that may be a common question
Mm,
or a doubt,
mm,
right?
Yep.
Because we think that people in position and power have it easy.
Mm.
But the reason I think people were, at least the leaders that we interviewed, right?
mm,
I think they were given power after they were already committed before they had power. There was a track record for how they were already leading
mm,
as an individual,
mm,
all right, or in a way that was not formal, informal leadership, right? Which is why they get into position. So I think they are the people that we interview. They're great, I would say, role models to say that they have done it before. So because you've done it before, let me now give you the power and the position to see what you can
What
do.
what
Yeah.
more can you do?
One.
Okay.
The other one is this, right? I think if you look at the leaders that we spoke to, whether you give them power or not, whether you give them position or not, these people will do what they will
Yeah.
always do.
Yep, exactly. I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
it's a matter of whether I'm paid to do that,
Yeah.
or not. But it's so much a part
Of them, yeah, I would say like natural, right? Instinctive.
Yeah. They're very authentic, right? I mean, going back to the word authentic, I think a lot of them presented themselves just the way they are. Spoke from their heart, didn't try and be someone else in the show, right? And I think that's what we appreciated a lot because they made it easy for us. It was human to human interaction. There was no talk down, no talk down with us, but no talk down even with their people, right? Treating people equally. So I think you become a particular person, and whoever you become is the type of leader you will then be.
Or they were who they were, whether they had a title,
Position or
a
not,
position to their names, right? So
Yeah.
that's what I'm hearing from you. Ashok, what's
Okay,
your take?
so I
Disagree.
won't say disagree totally. One level only, right?
You
I
dare.
dare.
Okay.
Okay, because you said these leaders had it easy. That's the part that I totally disagree. Okay, let me set some context first. Right? 2019, 2020.
Okay.
2019, hey, no pandemic, right? These leaders, right, would have still believed in their people. They would have been still doing what they've been doing, right? But when 2020 came along, right, because of the pandemic, if you think about all these leaders, right, you said it right, they put people in the center, right? But these leaders had deep level of empathy, and they showed up in 2020, right, to really focus on the people because they believed in people all the time, right? So for me, was it easy for them? It was not easy because now they had to handle the pandemic, their personal situation, and now how do I be a leader for my people? But because they've always been focused on the people, right? It was their North Star. They knew it was them first. do good by others first. They always focus on that, right?
Mm.
So the priority, right, rose up straight to the top for them. It's about the people. And that is why when they came on the show, I feel, right, talk on their better us.
Mm.
For 2 years, right, when people didn't know what to do,
Mm.
talking about business results and your P&Ls and what have you got, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were very clear about the people on the ground. You look at Harit, right? You look at when he came back to the business, right? He said he wanted to go back and understand the issues on the ground, the people on the ground, right? And I know in our blip in our show for him, we said he chose not to do head counts because he valued people. He saw people as people, right? And his language also came across, right? He doesn't talk to them about assets or in that way. So, and that's the same thing that came up for all the leaders I noticed. If there's one big priority is they really focus on the people, right?
So chicken and egg situation, which one came first?
Okay, so that's one thing, right? So they showed up during this period.
All
They
right.
showed up during this period. So what I'm seeing is the new leaders who are coming up, right? If they see the examples of your Harits and VJs and things and all that, that's a model that they can follow. Right? That would be a model that they can follow.
I think each one of the leaders that we spoke to brought different aspects of
Yes.
leadership to it, right? And the different aspects, I think, is very much either related to it played to their strengths to a certain degree
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
I think not always, but there was a little bit of that as well. Perhaps also played to their beliefs in what they thought would make a difference, right? And that could probably have come like their belief that if I need to know my people, I need to know my people both on a personal level as well as at the work level. So the work level is not just enough, but I also need to know what's happening on the personal life. Right. So it was a belief that a person has, and they followed that and they made that happen and they got the results from it. Right. So I think each of these leaders that we spoke to had different things that we can learn from.
Definitely.
Right. And I think it's not that if you want to be like that leader, what if I am challenged with a particular problem at work? Right, I'm trying to get the team to collaborate, but that's not happening, right? And I'm an individual contributor. How can I think about that a little bit differently? Go listen to someone who has done it, and you might get
Right.
some ideas, and you might just take the idea and that was said by the leader and use. It's not IP protected, right? So I think there are nuggets in all the 36 conversations that we had about different aspects of leaderships and
That's right.
challenges that leaders face. That I think it's a resource. I think right? I see it as a resource, a leadership program in itself to listen to the different aspects of leaderships that people did that. Yeah,
There's very rich content in the show,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and I think upcoming leaders, managers can actually also tap into the show to learn from them, right? And I'll keep saying that they really focused on people, and that's what really heartened me. You know, that was my biggest takeaway. Also, again,
Okay.
hearing the leaders.
Okay.
But you guys also had spoken about mental wellness,
Yeah.
right? What showed up there?
Don't understand the question.
Okay, because you see, in organization, right, we're still talking about focusing on results of people and all,
Yeah.
right? From what you've seen from the leaders, how did they now help their people through these issues? Because mental wellness, even in Singapore, right, prior to 2020, right, it was not really spoken about. We came up to in the surface, right, from about 2020, 2021 or so. And that's when people realized that you need to factor this, understand the emotions, right, to be able to drive, to help people, to help
Yeah.
your teams, right?
So one of the things that we were looking at was what are different elements that make for better for better leaders, right? And mental well-being was one of the things that we were looking at, right? Earlier on we were looking at themes, and we're looking at themes in terms of what was happening globally.
Yes.
So, for example, it was World Mental Health Day, for example, and that drove the theme for the month, right? And we looked for leaders as well as practitioners who were in that space because we were all grappling with it at that point in time.
Okay.
So, if your question is, what can we draw from that? I think there are lots of lessons we can draw from, just like we can draw from other things.
Was there
as well.
any particular leader that came up to you and said, "Oh, surprised you, what they were doing"? Or this is something that you suggest every other leader to
I
think
can
about?
I I can answer.
Okay.
No, I don't think it's so. I think two things, right? I think if we look at the way we started having our themes, is that we looked at women. So we started off in February. So we took
Valentine's Day.
theme of love, right?
All right. Yes.
So
Okay.
we spoke, we got speakers. I mean, when was the last time we feel comfortable to talk about using the word love at work?
Yes.
Now, well, I don't know whether it's easier for the women to do that than men, but we had Adi, right, from PwC, who clearly spoke about love at work, how he loved his people. Right. Then you had Celine, who shared about her own battle with cancer and stroke, and how she found her way back. Through her self-doubt. Now, how many managing directors or people at that level, many people go through health issues.
Okay.
But how many of them will have the courage to come in public and say, you know what, I've recovered from cancer. I had self-doubt when this job was offered to me, but you know what, this is what I did. And this is how I'm managing on a day-to-day basis. Right. And when stroke hit me, how I'm still dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. I think that's true great leadership, right? Because it's so easy to paint a perfect picture, but these are real people who are saying,
Struggling
I
with
have issues that you have and you might have, and here's how I manage. So we talk about love, right? Then we went into growth. Then we went into Mother's Day. Then, mental health.
No, we went into biasness because it was International
Women's Day. That was in March, right?
Yes, that's
so
right.
we spoke about break the bias, right?
Yeah.
And what was interesting in Break the Bias, we had Danish, right?
We had Badri, who created this whole ecosystem for women in order for him. I mean, imagine him in the middle, and he was like all women,
all surrounded by women,
right? And then
I can attest to that.
Badri, hats off. We know what you're facing. All right.
Hi, Mira.
And then it was Danish, and Danish was how he looked at the I in D&I rather than diversity, and he was talking about inclusion, and his focus was that inclusion will drive the outcome, right? That's essentially it. I need to be inclusive, regardless of whether it was diverse, not diverse, whatever, or in whichever form. Inclusion was very, very important, and he was governed by his childhood.
Okay.
Right. And being a Muslim in India, growing up as a minority, going through the struggles and all the biasness that's attached to it, right? And he had a very interesting way of looking at bias, right? So that was Danish, right? And
yeah. So what I wanted to say was that I think even though our theme was love, I think the kind of topics that we handle was not what we usually talk about.
In a leadership
platform, right? And the only reason we could talk about it is because we had leaders who were authentic and courageous enough
to share
those parts. Right.
Exactly.
So we can think about it, but unless we get the voice out through a person and someone in the leadership position, right? So again, going back to Break the Bias. So very often when we celebrate International Women's Day, it's all about women. But if you listen to the speakers, whether it's Danish or Badri, right? These, we often unfortunately look at it as men versus women, but these are men who lifted women up. Right? And I think that is the beauty, because there are people who lift each other up. We don't have to keep talking about people who bring each other down. Let's bring the positive. And these are the heroes who walk among us that we want to talk about,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Then when we went into mental health, I think April, right? When we went into the mental health month, now mental health was already a number 2 agenda before pandemic.
Okay.
All right.
Mm.
So there was a lot of data saying that mental health is going to cost us a lot.
Yes, the pandemic brought it further
Further.
up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Alright.
what the pandemic did is that, so in the past, even though we saw it, we talk about it, I don't think we could put it as a priority,
priority,
because
yeah.
it wasn't showing up, number one,
Mm.
on the business results.
Okay.
It was not showing up as a business problem.
Issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas what pandemic did is that pandemic gave people a lot of permission,
Mm.
right? Because a lot of people were having breakdowns.
Yes.
And some people, especially in powerful position, began to talk about it.
Anin.
Yes.
Yes. All right. And she shared her struggles with isolation, and how for Anin it was looking at the network that she had. She tapped on her network to help her think about her struggles, or to find solutions for her struggles. Right. That was Anin. Right. Then we had Maithili, and Maithili came from a practitioner's perspective on how to think about mental well-being. Right. And who else did we have?
I'm trying to go back.
So you have that aspect that we talked about, and that's why we talked about it in April, right? Then we moved on to other aspects. We had the financial aspect as well, or education, right? And what different kinds of education. So there was the financial education, and that's also another thing that we don't talk about at work with our teams.
I know. Then it was May, right?
Yeah.
We spoke about growth,
Okay.
Mother's Day, and how people like we brought in people like Wunman, I think, where she spoke about not having left the organization. Is that being grounded?
Yes,
right?
Yeah, we had a very cheeky question for her.
Yeah.
Right? Are you stuck, or are you surely grounded?
Grounded, right?
Yeah.
So strength come in ways that we may not be seeking.
Yeah.
We're so used to a particular form of strength
or success.
And I think what we saw, especially in the month of May, we had oh my goodness, what's her name?
Fuyan.
No, Fuyan was one.
Yep.
From Indonesia.
Ika.
Right? How motherhood shaped her.
Yep.
Right?
It was very interesting with Ika, because her lessons in motherhood fed her lessons in leadership.
Personal growth, leadership growth.
Yeah.
Exactly. That would relate to business growth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And then, of course, when we went to June, it was Father's Day.
Yes.
And we had the likes of Azwan.
Yes.
Who spoke about how his father influenced him, who was a role model. And how he looks at himself as the father for Accenture.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we looked at leadership as a person. He looked at himself. And then we went on to, I think, community Reuben.
Yeah. And for Reuben, it was very interesting because he didn't have a natural father figure, and he found his father figures in different ways, So it was the extension of his extended family, and also the community that he lived in at that point in time when he was growing up, right? And how that has shaped his leadership mentality in terms of how to. He's always looking at building a community, right?
Yeah.
And his role as a leader is as like a father to build the community, right? So that was Reuben, right?
Then we had Naga, who looked at nation building.
Yep.
Right? And then we went on to men's health.
Yes.
We've also looked after the men. So we had Lawrence Mitchell.
Yeah.
Right? We spoke about well-being and, specifically areas that we don't talk about, like the men's health.
Yeah.
Why men need more support if we want to.
Need as much support as women would need support as well.
Exactly.
Right? More or less, it does not matter. It's just different kinds of support that they need, right? And sometimes I think we forget that. Because we are biased in our own ways as well. Yeah.
Then we looked at coaching, when we talk about support, and we looked at coaching. Cheryl again came on our show.
Yep.
So we looked at that support, how do you do the coaching? What kind of other support that we can give leaders, right? So I think we brought Nirmala, right?
It's
Who spoke about financial literacy, right?
literacy. That's your
Yeah,
passion
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
your right.
Yeah.
And it's also something that I thought was very, very important for us to talk about, because I think financial education and financial resilience is something that we don't typically talk about under leadership.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's something that it's part of our people, because just like mental well-being is, right, and the other aspects of it, right. So we had Nirmala talk about it, and she shared how it's become a passion because she went through a little bit of a
Yeah.
tough time.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I felt what was good, especially with those kind of educational stuff, is that we start, I think, leadership um, responsibility
Mm.
now start going into it stepped over into people's personal life.
Yep.
So whether you look at mental health or financial literacy
Mm.
or coaching, right?
Mm.
See, in the past, leadership is I lead you at work, just get the job done.
Right.
Right now, because of COVID, we are now beginning to acknowledge that there is no clear boundary, no clear line, which means that we now have to help our people, whatever help they need, we need to help them and support them
Sure.
to be the best version.
Do you all see the quality of the show now? Okay, I'm seeing this. Okay, I don't know about you guys who are listening in, right? So what I'm seeing is, right, the pandemic allowed a lot of these conversations that people didn't want to have to show up. And it is at the leaders level. So you allow the leaders to hold these conversations. Okay? No, hold on. Right? You allowed that. And this was important to talk about. Why? Because this showed what you're doing differently. What the leaders were doing very differently to get the results. You see the quality of the show.
Despite the change,
it's
despite
very
the challenges.
different. That's right. Despite all of that, because this is not a sandbox experiment anymore. It happened. COVID happened. It affected everyone at a personal level. It showed up.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and everyone, right, and
As in-
everybody, right, had to focus on business results also.
Yes.
While looking at the people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you gave the platform for everyone to talk about what really matters.
Oh,
I like to say, but honestly, I'm uncomfortable. Hi, Azwan.
Hi, Azwan.
Oh, we love you.
Yeah. And I'm your father, Lord Vader. Yes. No. Where's my lightsaber? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you're
I'm
not
not sure.
comfortable with this? Eh?
No, I don't know about him, but I'm not comfortable. I'll tell you why. And humility is not one of my values.
Yeah.
I don't think we gave them the platform. I think that they allowed their voice to be used for this platform. For that, we are grateful.
Yeah.
Yes,
We're
exactly.
very, very, very grateful for that, because I think with the platform, because we wanted to do things, but we needed the voice of leaders to stand with us.
Actual
to
practitioners.
stand with us.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
That's
To
right.
go into that space. So I have difficulty, because I really think it is not easy to get great leaders who are practitioners, who can be courageous and vulnerable to speak the truth and say it as it is.
Yes.
In a very people-centric way.
Fair enough. But you did it. Okay? We did it. And that's what we're going to keep doing for 2023. We are going to unearth those pearls, right? And inspire more and more people, right? To do things differently, to do things by focusing on the people, right? You've already set the pathway.
Yep.
We're going to keep
So
digging,
big and
right?
scary.
Yeah, it's scary.
No, it's not. It's so exciting.
Okay.
Because things are unclear.
I
And
don't
you
know
have
whether we're
good
going to
leaders
inspire
coming up and
people.
saying, let's do this.
I don't know whether we're going to inspire people, but we're going to give voice to inspiration to be heard.
Yeah, and we'll be inspired by
I'll be
the
inspired. You know, I've been inspired since September.
Yeah, there you
Still
go.
am.
So, 2023, some of you have asked us, what is it going to be about? We're not letting the cat out the bag. It's also Q4. We're still figuring it out. Huh?
No, I'm quite clear because I know a workspace is a fantastic way for all of us to build relationships, to grow ourselves.
Yep.
You know me, I always come back to business results, but in a way where we focus on the people.
Yep.
Right.
So
I will still like.
Actually,
to
that's
bring
the
that.
only way forward.
Exactly.
Yes,
There is no
And-
other
and
way.
That's
Yeah.
what I like to talk about in 20, because yes, everybody's talking about the big headwind or economic headwinds coming, things are going to be more difficult, stagflation, and what have you got? We want to get the voice of those leaders who have the conviction, have the courage, and the confidence to do things differently and talk about things that people are uncomfortable to talk about.
All right. And if you're still listening in, and if you're listening in later, here's what you can do for us. Subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify for the past shows if any of these make resonate with you. But most importantly, what we would really appreciate is, we do know that it's going to be challenging. 2023 is going to be challenging. Whether you're a leader or not, tell us what kind of challenges that what kind of speakers you want us to bring, what kind of challenges
What
you are
topics?
what
What
topics
topics?
you
Questions.
want.
What
Yeah,
aspects of leadership?
questions,
Yeah.
right?
What are you struggling with? What are you thinking about? What are you reflecting on? Right. Tell us, because that will give us an idea. Also, give us help around giving you what you need and sharing.
And
what you need
we'll
as
try
well.
and source for those speakers also, right?
As well, and tell us about the people, the leaders
That you
who,
know.
yeah,
Yeah,
who's
inspire.
walked
Quiet
with
leaders.
you, who walks the talk, and bring them to our attention, because it's time we start bringing out the pearls from this part of the world, and you can help them shine. So, tell us what your challenges are, what are the questions that you might have, and most importantly, highlight the great leaders, not perfect, but great leaders who are people-centric, who are purposeful, who walk their talk, and highlight them to us, so that we can continue
Yep.
doing what we're doing and serve you.
Okay. And on that note, thank you, everyone. Have a good end of the year, and we'll see you on the 5th of January, 2020.
We are starting on the 5th. I
Fifth
thought
of
we were on
January?
leave.
No,
No.
It is
5th
the
of
fifth?
January.
Right. It is 1st
2023.
of December today, isn't it?
Yes,
Right.
it is. Yes.
With that, this is Malar from Malaysia, signing off from Singapore.
Yeah.
Yes, happy end of the year, and I look forward to the new year, where we will say Happy New Year. And
Thank you, everyone, right, for having tuned in, listening to us, and thank you all the leaders for really sharing with us all your nuggets, your wisdom, insights. It's really helped a lot of people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.